Good morning, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. It's my great pleasure to be with you here today on this marvelous event. It has been a great learning session today, and the same thing was yesterday. We've been indulged and privileged to learn and to hear from industry experts from various industries that are related and are working one way or another with the fintech industry and all other sphere of technology that is shaping our life today. So for me, today I'm going to be, inshallah, presenting to you about the ecosystem of sustainable fintech. And today, next, please. So today we're going to be talking about some fintech misconceptions. There are many of fintech misconceptions, but we're going to highlight on some of the most important ones. And then we're going to be highlighting on national priorities and how the region is evolving with countries that are looking at the future for much more of systematic approach to achieve sustainable development, and how the regulators are aligning their activities in line with market needs, customer demands, and those national priorities, along with the international evolution of the fintech industry. And then we're going to go and touch upon the elements of the fintech ecosystem, and we will talk in particular about industry collaboration and fintech financial inclusion and literacy. So, among the misconceptions, many people are thinking differently about the fintech industry. When you talk about fintech, many people are just thinking about cryptocurrencies, or they are confining their direction and thoughts toward very specific part of the industry. And as you, ladies and gentlemen, highlighted today in your speeches and yesterday as well, there was a learning session for everybody to see how fintech is much more broader than what could be as a misconception. But among the misconceptions that people are thinking of, and especially when looking at it from investment point of view, and investors that are interested in investing in this industry, they will think about it as the bubble will burst, because they have seen some events happening in the past, that when the dot-com came in year 2000, everybody was talking about dot-com. So there's some sort of fear or psychological uncomfort is happening here today when people are hearing too much about fintech. So we need to know what sort of language, what sort of awareness we need to create to the audience, whether they are the users, whether they are the investors, so on and so forth. So yes, there is a much of talk, but the bubble will not burst. We're still at the early phases. We are still seeing new innovations coming in, and we are seeing promising growth for the industry over the upcoming years and decades, inshallah. And many people thinking, okay, battle between banks and the fintech industry. I always get sometimes into discussions from people from specifically outside the financial industry. Oh, we are hearing that with the blockchain, banks will go out of business. Is it going to be something that we need to be concerned about? And it is not. It's a whole ecosystem that where banks, fintech, technology companies, other providers, I would say players who are having access to customers like telecom, and what we were just hearing now, many players who are not into the financial services, they're going to be entering into that. It is an ecosystem that where different players have a space and a role to play in. It can be changing in the way that they are practicing things, but that doesn't mean that banks will be challenged with the fintech industries, unless if those banks they remain stagnant and they stop the evolution, which I'm not seeing happening, because banks with increased requirements in terms of AML and security and cyber security, they continue evolving and becoming more resilient than they were before. And talking about fintech is not safe. We've seen today about artificial intelligence and cyber security, and how actually regulators are imposing more pressure on banks for the benefit of everybody, the investors, the employees, and different stakeholders, to ensure that those fintech are operating in a safe environment. And then fintech will only reach large markets. That's also another conception, with fintech being a big concept and a big name that people are hearing. So they are just thinking that, okay, it's targeting the big players. However, fintech is actually to widen the participation and access for financial and products and services to the unbanked population, as we've seen today. And fintech is only about lending and paying money. It's not. It's not only a payment and lending. We know that as expert and participant in this industry, that Fintech is there to provide all type of other financial services. We've seen it in insurance. We've seen it as a way to mobilize your money and a way to store your money, so on and so forth. And there are many anti-fintech regulations. This could have been somehow true in the past, and it wasn't anti-fintech. It's just that technology and practitioners, educators, regulators are having different pace, and usually in most cases you sometimes will see the regulators a bit slower for a reason because they have the most responsibility on their shoulders to ensure that when they are regulating somebody, it has been studied, it has been tested, it has been provenly that this is going to be something of an added value to all stakeholders, investors, customers, so on and so forth. However, regulators have been always supportive. They are actually driving these initiatives, and we will be seeing more of that at a later part of the presentation. So we were, as I said, we're going to be speaking a bit about the national priorities, and it's going to be very important because in any business today, you need to see where the world is moving, and national priorities, something like Oman Vision 2040, and because Oman is hosting us, and this is something to share with them, that which shows that there is a real, a clear, I would say, direction that is well documented, that well thought of, well communicated to all the stakeholders within the industry, so that different industries can actually have a, I would say, a clear outlook of where the country is moving. So those industries, they also can contribute to the implementation of this vision through strategizing. So we talk about national priorities, then we talk about regulators, and we talk about companies and people. So it is like a whole supply chain that is interconnected and where people actually are driving their efforts toward clear objectives that is set by national authorities, where they are demonstrating what are the key priorities and the focus that the government is going to be driving its own resources in the future. And among the pillars for Oman National or Oman Vision 2040, as they call it, there is the economy and development pillars, which is focusing on creating wealth through economic diversification and a private sector partnership. This is highlighting on an important thing, which is the public-private partnership. In the past, there was some sort of, I would say, a clear line between the private and public. But today, we're seeing much more of interaction between both. And there are lots of public-private partnerships or the PPPs that are driving business and actually improving the economy and having some changes happening on the aspect of people's living. So moving from Oman Vision, there is another example, which is Qatar National Vision. Qatar National Vision is having four main pillars: human development, so focusing on that they would like to ensure that the human well-being is preserved. There is some social development, addressing the social changes and trends and how the communication today is changing people's view. When you are talking about media, you are talking about social media, you are talking about different methods of communication and interacting globally that are changing consumer behaviors and are changing people's attitude toward different things in life. And then there's the economic diversification and economic development, which is actually a very important pillar, especially for most of the countries in this region, if not all, because we've been reliant for the last 5 decades or more on hydrocarbon income. It has been a great development that the GCC has been going through with economic development, diversification, and integration between countries. And at the same time, we've been seeing lots of evolution in different sectors. So we've seen real estate, finance, education, health sectors has been well developed, but much more going to be needed in the future with changing in the trends and the social aspects. Environmental development also. People today are much more cautious on environmentally friendly practices. Paperless, talking about, consuming less hydrocarbon. Today, we are actually having our conference via Zoom because of COVID-19. But who knows, this might become the trend in the future post COVID-19. This might become part of the new normal as been heard now and then, because people today are saying, why will I travel to a different country? Yes, we are missing being in Oman and seeing the beauty of Oman and meeting our brothers and sisters there. But at the end of the day, there is much more concern about traveling and how much of carbon emissions those flights are given in. So that is changing the way we think, we behave, and we act. So from national priorities, different sectors are actually evolving. And I would like to give the example of Qatar Central Bank. Here we have a very vibrant and thriving regulators with the Qatar Central Bank or Qatar Financial Center, Qatar Financial Market Authorities. They have come up together and they created the second strategic plan for the financial sector. We have Qatar National Vision 2030, but it is actually broken down into a different strategic plan that we started with 2011 to 2016. Now we are in the second phase, 2017 to 2022, which is going to be, inshallah, ending with the World Cup being hosted in Qatar. We'll be welcoming you all, inshallah, and pleased to have you here. So, in the second strategic plan, the regulators are aligning their efforts and plans toward the pillars of the national vision. We see how this is all interconnected. It started from vision from a government level, it goes to the regulators, and it gets cascaded down to the players in the industry, to the end users of the services. So we see how the financial markets and innovation is an important aspect for the central bank from an environmental pillar, and how we are using innovation to reduce carbon emissions, and we are reducing all the type of waste that is associated with documentation, for example. And this is just a simple example. A human capital is a human pillar. We've been investing a lot in educating the human capital, supporting Qataris to get into the financial sector, and actually having some targets on institutions to have Qatarization development programs. I myself was actually privileged to be benefiting from one of those programs when I was working with HSBC and Commercial Bank. So we've seen some sort of pressure that's got national vision supporting the regulators to define their direction, where actually they're working closely in collaboration with the institutions. Social pillars, we are seeing how the demographics are changing in the Middle East, financial inclusion becoming much more important than ever. In the past, you would have customers that mainly either going to speak Arabic or English. Today, with huge construction markets we are having here today, we are having people speaking different languages, and they are needing to have their services, and they they would require their demands and needs to be met in their own languages, so they can be having that comfort. So, like for example, a company like Gulf Exchange, I'm not going to just make it about us, but for example, today we operate websites in 14 languages, and we ensure that we are trying to outreach to our customers when they are coming to our branches. We have people who are speaking 18 languages there. So we want to be closer to ensure that they are being able to access the financial services. While if they go to conventional institutions, sometimes they would have those linguistic, cultural barriers, so on and so forth. Economic pillar, again, we talk about the financial sector regulators, regulations, again, financial markets and innovation, which we've seen it in the environmental pillar, and the enhancement of the financial system. So going from government to regulators perspective, there are many elements of fintech ecosystem. You can't just consolidate them in a small list or in a 15-minute talk in such a great conference like this one. However, these are key elements that we address when we are strategizing and planning in our organization on how we can reach to our customers with innovative products, and we can actually improve I would say, the spectrum of products and services that are offered and actually in the industry. So we talked about the government support. No need to speak much more about that. We saw how the regulators are aligning themselves. Also, there is an access to capital, and there is something interesting in happening in the region that, alhamdulillah, we have been producers of wealth. The hydrocarbon has helped us to become wealthiest nations. But that is part of the economic diversification, to have flow of funds happening between countries. We need actually to have robust and resilient markets to attract capital, because with capital you can actually attract other part of the jigsaw. You can actually have access to the right talent. Let's say when we are seeing international institutions are investing in the region, acquiring stakes in local banks. They are not just only coming with money to have access to our markets, but they are coming in with the talent, with the know-how, and also the development of the local markets. And we've done very well in the first instant when we actually had the banking sector boom in the early, and I would say like 50, 70 years, a decade ago. But today in fintech, we are still needing to have that momentum happening. We need to actually showcase to the much more developed financial markets that we are capable of attracting funds and capital to actually nurture fintech investments in this part of the world and have access to the right talent through supporting fintech. I mean, the supporting the startups, and the startups are very important today in the fintech domain. As we saw in the misconception earlier that we talked about, people are thinking, okay, fintech is only about big markets, but it's not the case. Fintech is about having the support to the end users, different, the unbanked population, the startups, and working closely to understand their demands. So we would require also to learn from them on their demands. At the same time, we actually promote financial inclusion and literacy, which is going just beyond speaking different languages. You need to actually include them in your portfolio of products, understanding their needs and demands. That altogether can only happen through industry collaboration. Today, we are seeing great initiatives happening right and left, but much more of collaboration is required. And we've just seen how, for example, in Qatar Financial Center today, that we are having the FinTech Hub, which is bringing different players to actually work together, collaborate together to come up with the best regulations and to have the best environment to attract investments and the right capital that is able to serve the community and promote financial inclusion and literacy. That industry collaboration today is more important than ever. Many people are panicking today, saying, okay, I'm seeing WhatsApp, I'm seeing Facebook are entering into the financial services. They have definitely wider access to customer than I have today. What we're going to be doing, how this work going to be there. It is actually at the end of the day a collaboration between the technology provider, the customer owners, and actually the regulators and so on and so forth. I just wanted to highlight very quickly on our collaboration, for example, and this is a real life case. When we saw, for example, Ooredoo and Qatar entering into the money transfer industry, it was some sort of panic in the beginning for some of the, let's say, exchange houses. And they said, okay, if Ooredoo is coming and having millions of customer base, how are we going to be able to actually to remain in business? We have looked at this one as a different, actually, perspective. We've seen it as a great opportunity for collaboration. In the past, I was working on B2C and I was directly selling my services to my clients. Now I am having both B2C and B2B because I'm selling my services to Ooredoo, and through Ooredoo, actually, the customers are having access to Gulf Exchange money transfers. These are the kind of mindset. This is the kind of a mindset we need to look into. Banks and exchange houses are not competing with each other. With each others. Yes, they are competing with their own and themselves, to get the best out of their own capabilities and capitalize on their strengths. But this has to also open opportunities and be looked at very positively in terms of collaboration between different players in the industry. Last, talking about financial inclusion and literacy. I mean, the topic, you could speak hours and hours about it. And to consolidate within 15 minutes, I wanted not to repeat what the good stuff been said by other people today. So we wanted just to highlight on different dimension on the way we are looking at it. This is showing us how we, as Gulf Exchange, with Ooredoo, together combined, we started actually promoting the usage of the mobile application for the money transfer. We go to the labor camp. Now, this is for sure before COVID-19, because you don't see people wearing masks. But also during COVID-19, it didn't stop us. We actually were working closely with different government agencies to follow certain guidelines and to follow certain, I would say, dynamics to ensure that life is not stopping. It will not be disrupted. Ways of doing things can change, but the objective will always be one, that we are trying to create a resilient ecosystem that is serving all stakeholders, whether it's translating the national priorities into reality, following the regulators, working closely with the customers, and at the end of the day, also ensuring that the investors who are actually investing in this industry are not shying away. they are sure that they are in the right industry. They will be investing more and more to take it to the next level. Thank you so much for your time, and inshallah, I look forward to seeing you all in Qatar, inshallah.